Hi, this is Mike, and I'm recording this on July 27th, 2024. It's about a New York Notary Public refresher training concerning a notary public who's an attorney who committed misconduct in Manhattan and lost his license. So let's get into this. So we have a New York City attorney, notary public, charged with misconduct for notarizing an affidavit without affiant physical appearance and for charging $10 for signatures notarized and for not administering a verbal oath. So this was in 1997, and it's still relevant today. Good learning opportunity here. So it was the Department of State Division of Licensing Services charged an attorney named Seth Roberts. Back then, he's probably not even still practicing law, and it's totally relevant and still concurs with the current published New York State notary license law. So the findings of fact by the judges was that there was a notice of hearing together with a copy of the complaint, and the respondent, who's the attorney at all times hereinafter mentions, was commissioned as a notary public and also a licensed attorney at law in Manhattan. And each of the documents that he notarized illegally consisted of a document in Italian, and Miss Zolo apparently was a translation of that document, and Miss Zolo's certification of the translation. So the complaint said that it alleged that the respondent, the attorney, a notary public, notarized four documents without the affiant appearing before him. So she never appeared before him, but he notarized it. Apparently, the documents were truthful, and she did sign them. And he was also charged with excessive fee for notarizations, $40. So he did four for $10 each. Okay, so that was the complaint. So Danielle Zolo was seeking to have her certifications of translations of a certain documents relating to her education notarized, and she inquired about the presence of a notary public in a copy store. So she went into a copy store in Manhattan. This is not the actual copy store. This is just one I found online. It was actually a Brooklyn one, so I redacted the address. And she was told in the copy store that there was an attorney upstairs. So she went upstairs to the law office to get something notarized upstairs for a notary, actually, who happened to be an attorney also. So Ms. Zola went to the respondent's office where she spoke with Miriam Garcia, a lovely secretary. This is not her. And Miss Garcia took her passport and the documents into the attorney, the defendant, in the back office. So she might have been like 30 feet away through a closed door from the notary who notarized it, all right? So even though you're in the right office, it has to be in the presence of the notary. So she only met with the secretary. Notary public license law also says fees of public officers. Each public officer upon whom a duty is expressly imposed by the law must execute the same without fee or reward except where a fee or other compensation therefore is expressly allowed. So you're allowed $2 when you notarize something when the person comes to you, and it is not mandatory to charge the fee, and you cannot charge more than is allowed. So an officer or other person to whom a fee or other compensation is allowed by law for any service shall not charge or receive a greater fee or reward for that service than is allowed. Okay, so at no time did Ms. Zolo see or speak with the respondent attorney. She did not acknowledge her signatures on the certifications, which may have been affixed either before or after notarization. So they don't even know here if she signed it before the secretary brought it in or after they brought it out. But anyway, Miss Solo was charged $40 for the notarization. So for those of you panicking about notary fees, there's three different scenarios. This was the first scenario. The fee for the four signatures is $2 times four, or $8, because this is when a person travels to the notary. That's regulated. Now, the next scenario that this did not apply to is a notary public can charge whatever the affiant is willing to pay when the notary travels, because the notary has travel expenses and extra time, which is unregulated. So that's whatever you can get, and the person agrees to you. And also, the third scenario is a New York notary can also charge $25 per signature when it's done electronically, known now as RON, Remote Online Notary. So in this case, she traveled to the notary. The notary had no extra expenses, and it was not online. So it's regulated as $2. So also for oath, an oath or affirmation shall be administered in a form calculated to awaken the conscience and impress the mind of the person taking it in accordance with his or her religious or ethical beliefs. So the oath must be administered required by law. The person must appear before the notary, and the person, has to say "I do" or "like" meaning for an oath or affirmation to be valid. So it's an unacceptable defect now. Whatever form is adopted, it is necessary that first the person swearing or affirming must personally be in the presence of the notary public. Secondly, the person unequivocally swears or affirms that what he or she states is true and that he or she swears or affirms at the time. And lastly, the person conscientiously takes upon him or herself the obligation of the oath by answering out loud with the words "I do" or some other words of like meaning. So we're not going to cover, the oath procedure in this video. This is just to remind you guys that, of a scenario here that happened where the person was probably only like 30 feet away on the other side of a door and still did not appear before the notary. So professional conduct without actual personal appearance of the individual making the acknowledgement or an affidavit before officialing the notary, it's illegal. And with misconduct, you get a misdemeanor and lose your license. So the judge said each set of documents consisted of a document in Italian, Ms. Zolo's translation of that document, Ms. Zolo's certification of the translation. Ms. Zolo put a jurat on there, sworn to before me, telling the notary, in this case an attorney, you have to administer the oath. Do you swear that the contents of this affidavit is true? And he didn't do that, so she wasn't even in the room with him. So the judge says, I do not find credible the respondent's testimony that he spoke with Ms. Zolo, administered an oath to her, and certified additional documents to be submitted by her to Immigration and Naturalization Service. His testimony was contradicted by the highly credible testimony of Ms. Zolo, for whom no motive to lie was even suggested, and by statements by which were made by the defendant to the complainant's investigator. So the state sent an investigator, met with this attorney, and he made what the judge ruled a false statement that he did actually meet with her. And it was kind of like even more proven by the reason of having notarized 4 documents with untrue statements that they were sworn to before him. He was guilty of misconduct. So apparently the secretary, the secretary wasn't brought in as a witness either, and the attorney defendant didn't even get a statement from his secretary, because the truth was the secretary would say that she brought it in and he notarized it illegally. So note, since the documents were not fraudulent and they really were signed by the affiant, it was not a felony. So it was a truthful document. He notarized a truthful document. So the problem was he just did it all illegally and overcharged. So it was just a misdemeanor. Now, since the affiant was not administered the oath and did not appear before the notary, it was also an unacceptable defect. And they didn't mention that in the hearing, but that would mean that her documents were thrown out and she had damages and could sue him separately in civil court by missing her deadline for filing whatever she filed for the immigration services. Okay, so she was damaged even further because her documents became unacceptable. So the determination, wherefore it is hereby determined that Seth Roberts has engaged in acts of misconduct as notary public. Accordingly, pursuant to Executive Law 130, his commission as a notary public is revoked, effective immediately. And that's the way that story ended. Okay, so just to remind you folks, the state now has new schedules out, and you can see them on our website, and there's a lot of exams going on now, and they're all walk-in. And for anybody who's going to send a coworker to get licensed, let them go to this website, how to become a notary in ny.com, or call 347-427-9091 extension 1. You can see the current notary exam schedules and procedures, all walk-in now with no appointment. New York Notary online class to prep you for the state exam. We have less than 1% of our students report failing, and that's after 22 years, over 70,000 students trained. And you can join the New York Notary Association to get this newsletter directly, and not just the part of it you're seeing on YouTube. and it's opt-in, no fee there. Notary supplies, testimonials, sample New York Notary practice exam so you can see what the state exam is like. And for those of you that are listening to this that have been with me for years and years, you can upgrade to get a remote online notary. We have a course for that in there now. We're also moving a lot of these notary licensed wall displays into people's offices and homes. I call that the I Love Me wall. We have all your certificates of accomplishment, but it's really nice to have it on your wall in your office to remind the people you work with, your coworkers, that you did something with over a 60% failure rate in New York State. You accomplished that goal, and you get increased respect and job security as a result of that, because every office needs a notary public, doesn't yours? All right, so once again, visit howtobecomeanotaryinny.com. Thanks for watching. We appreciate all of you for spending your valuable time with us and liking, commenting, and sharing. It helps the algorithm. We really appreciate you taking a moment for doing that on YouTube, and we'll see you